once again to another episode of CRM Radio Today. Brought to you by the good folks at Goldmine. With the man who has a gold mine of information for us each and every week, Paul Petersen. Hey, Paul.
Hi, Paul.
You have just come back from a magic place here, and we would be remiss if we didn't point out that in all your travels around the world, I think you've been to one of your more favorite places here. Tell us about what you just did.
Yeah, this was a sort of a bucket list. I don't have much on the bucket list, and this was one. I was in London and took time out to go to Abbey Road, and tomorrow is the 50th anniversary of that album coming out.
Yeah, right.
Big listening party here, but I went there, and I didn't feel compelled to walk across and get a photo of me, which everybody thought. But
I thought you were going to do that.
There were so many people. It's sort of like Mount Everest now. A bunch of Japanese tourists trying to get selfies, and the street was clogged, and it was a lot of fun, young and old on the block, and I just stood there and sort of soaked it in, and it's amazing. That is such an iconic photo.
Yeah, right, exactly. How it's lived through the years. I thought, that album cover when I was a kid caused such controversy and all these, theories. If you played the record backwards, it was, said Paul is dead or all these other crazy things.
Morris is Paul. All that
kind of John, Paul, Ringo, and George, just the Beatles, just certainly captivated us, not just with the music, but with that whole promotion and album. And then there was a picture of Paul walking across the street, and of course he's barefoot, like he's
Italian. The Italians were buried barefoot, and the Ringo's looking like an undertaker.
Yeah, and he had the cigarette in his wrong hand because he's left-handed, and all this kind of stuff. And
and then there's the license plate on the Volkswagen, right?
Yes, I forgot what that one said. But
Paul would be 28 if.
Oh yes,
28
right.
If, 28 if he had lived. And I think somewhere I went, they debunked all that, but. It made for some interesting reading, and you just wonder if it was a very clever
marketing ploy or it's just pure happenstance. Well, we just happened to have you back right at the magic moment here, and I just had to bring that up. I know it doesn't have anything to do with CRM, but I just thought it was a cool story here.
Well, thanks, and it goes on around us. But today,
your guest will appreciate it because, like me, he's Irish, and Irish love stories. I don't know about this gentleman, but every Irishman I love loves a good story.
Today we have Justin Smal, who's CEO of Monread. Justin, welcome.
Hi, Paul. How are you? Welcome. Thank you for having me.
I'm well.
Let me quietly correct you. I'm actually a Dutchman living in Ireland, married to an Irish lady.
Well, it's the same thing. It rubs off on you after a while.
Well, I went out and I kissed the Blarney Stone, so maybe my chat has gotten better than when I was there anyway.
That's pretty close to a conversion. Well, and Justin, when we met in January, we were talking, and I popped into Dublin to our office, and you were kind enough to come out, and you've been a long-time Goldmine partner, and you're also a partner for Zoho, and your description says CRM strategist. And one of the reasons I wanted to chat with you today was you were also named CRM Thought Leader by the All Ireland Business Foundation for 2018. So I wanted to get into that a little bit. But in looking at your background, Justin, I saw that you started out somewhere in the 90s, but you were doing some consulting, but you sold tickets to Tony Robbins events. Is that right?
Well, I didn't just sell it. We had the rights for Tony Robbins in Europe in my previous company, which, we were selling Tony Robbins seminars, so basically all over the continent, Belgium, Italy, France, England. Good times. It was basically started in 95. I was, if you will believe it, the finance director. And at some point, our sales team started growing. And this is actually when I ran into Goldmine, because one of the sales guys came. We get all these Excel sheets and all that, so you can imagine the fun with that. And one of the guys came to me, and he had been talking to somebody in the UK who mentioned Goldmine. So what we did, probably in 96, I say tail end of 96, we actually implemented Goldmine 4 into the business for the sales team. And what I found at that time was, I actually find that way more interesting than doing finance. So I basically changed my job descriptions. 2 years later, I sold up, and I went out on my own and started Monread CRM in 1999.
You started, and in fact, that's how I came to Goldmine. I used it at a couple of companies that I was at, including Symantec, who at the same time owned ACT. But I used it for 5-6 years, and when a recruiter called me, I thought, that's a good place to go. I know this product inside out. I should be able to sell it. If you look back at what you were doing then, what was sort of the main big win for a product like Goldmine or CRM when you started out? What was, and how has that changed over the 20-some years that you've been practicing?
Yeah, you think that there's been lots of changes and all that, and in reality in CRM, I mean, the core philosophy is still there. It's kind of having all your data in one place, seeing all your communications in one place, all the interactions that you might have with leads or prospects or customers, and actually being able to preempt at times. And that's, of course, the technology has advanced, so that's only getting better and better. But even at that time, being able to very quickly call up a record and see what have they bought or what was their interest. And that really hasn't changed. Because at the core of it, that's what a CRM is, and what a CRM should be the one place of the truth. Everybody in an organization, as far as I'm concerned, should have some level of access to a CRM. And what happened a little bit, I think, over the intervening years is that it was CRM equals sales, and not true in my book. CRM is kind of the core center of any organization.
Certainly salespeople, well, and that's how you learned about it, right? Keeping track of your prospects because you need an organized list, forecasting opportunities. But very, very quickly, of course, you've got customer service, and all businesses do some sort of customer service, and you should keep track of that. And today we see, and I don't know if you see much more of this, but we see a little bit more of the marketing experts showing up at our demos and webinars because you've got this database of lists, and that's how you manage it.
Yeah, but that's especially in the last couple of years. A lot of these, what traditionally will be driven by sales, is kind of getting driven by marketing. Yeah. Where they actually see, there is this kind of database that we can use, and we can kind of interact with the sales teams and with the people who actually, like, you can have all the marketing in the world, but if there's nothing behind it, as in a person or some sort of process to actually sell the product, then there's not much use for most companies. I mean, we can't all have very expensive internet sites which do everything for us, and there's an awful lot of sales guys out there who actually make an organization tick. So in a sense, the more information you can give them, the better. And I think marketing kind of switched on, and they realized, well, we're not a completely separate business unit that we do our own thing, because there's no point doing a lot of marketing and there's no proper company follow-ups,
Now, if they're working off the same database, they can get those follow-ups. From a CRM strategy standpoint, which you do, what are some of the things that you're promoting, and does that change based on the size of the business? Are there some key things you look for when you go out to a client?
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't necessarily change on the size of the business, because I think everybody should have a solid CRM strategy, and in that sense, you can be more expansive with bigger clients because they just have many more resources than the smaller organizations. But the core idea of a CRM strategy is that you make it kind of a centerpiece of your overall company strategy. And especially now with, of course, the latest buzz rounds of digital transformation and this, that, and the other, it becomes an essential part of a business, and just being clear of what is it that strategy actually should be. Because at the end of the day, if you don't have any preset goals or anything like tactics and the objectives or anything like that, you're just floundering around, and you can never figure out what's working or not. And in that sense, a CRM tool itself is needed, because it kind of, how would you say that in English, it supports the entire CRM strategy, and it has to permeate through the organization, whether you are a 5-man business or a 200-man business or a 1,000-man business.
So do you still think, is customer retention still a main goal that you help clients with? And what are some of the strategies for that where CRM plays a role?
Yeah, well, I mean, retention, what is the easiest, the cheapest way is to keep your customers rather than trying to find new ones. So retention is always a core part of any strategy, but the only way you can keep retention is that you service them, and that you service them in the places that they want to be serviced. And especially nowadays with all the different apps, all the different websites, all the different social media channels, you have to be where your customers are and the way that they want to interact with you. And in a sense, that CRM strategy is kind of almost part of your digital transformation, where you are actually potentially changing the way you do business, because you are activating all the different channels. And by doing that and having a more immediate response to any query or any question, and anybody being able to answer that, you will always retain customers. It's just the way it is, and
that was the basis of the CRM. Don't you're losing customers, it's losing profit. You need to find some way to be in touch with them. We're going to take a break, and we'll be right back talking with Justin Smal, CEO from Ireland of Monread.
We know you rely on your CRM system, and it's usually a love-hate relationship. Most CRM systems, well, let's face it, they're expensive. They're hard to understand. People don't use them properly. And you're probably paying for features that you don't even want. If that's your case, then maybe it's time to simplify. It's time to get more from your CRM. Why don't you go back to the original? Trust Goldmine. We helped pioneer the industry, after all. Goldmine CRM is, well, it's simple, it's affordable, and it's proven. If all those sound appealing to you, if you're just tired of the CRM headaches that you're getting from trying to implement something that's just too complicated, too expensive, and too much for you to figure out, then why not go back to the original? Visit Goldmine today, goldmine.com.
We're back with Justin Smal from Monread. And Justin, we started out this conversation and talking about your designation as the All-Ireland Business Foundation's CRM Thought Leader for 2018. And I wondered if you could share a little bit about how that came to be, how you were recognized for that, and let us in on what some of those thoughts were, maybe.
I sit around thinking an awful lot there, Paul. I mean, it's one of these things that the All Ireland Business Foundation is an organization that kind of promotes Irish business, and at some point, with the connections that I've have and all the CRM that I'm doing, they actually knocked on my door, and they were looking at different thought leaders for different industry verticals. And basically I said, well, I really just do CRM, and I go across plenty of verticals, and they found that actually quite interesting, because especially over the last few years, that the whole CRM has become front and center again for a lot of organizations, where in the past they will manage with an Excel sheet. It's just not good enough anymore, and people know that. And the CRM is it starts opening doors into that whole digital transformation thing. They put me through this 5-step exhaustive process about my thinking, about what I wanted to do with it, and sharing with people. And at the end of the day, they looked at my history as well. They thought, he'd be a good thought leader. So primarily, it's kind of keeping up to speed of what's going on and trying to figure out, okay, what's going to happen next. In that sense, it's one of those things that you're looking in a crystal ball, really. But it's in a lot of things, it's staying up to speed, and not just with the technology, but also with just the general business thinking in sales, in marketing, in customer service, in strategy, and all that. So,
is there anything new in that line of thinking that strikes you, or that is a sort of a topic that you're working on with clients a lot more these days than in the past, perhaps? Is there something new? Or
the newness is that people are becoming aware of this whole digital transformation. Now, what a lot of people think is, I'm going to get a CRM solution, I'm going to get a marketing solution, and hey, presto, I'm digitally transformed. But transformation is basically enabling you to use the data that you get to transform the way that you do business. And what I'm trying to explain to people, for that to happen, you need a central database. You need one place where all these sources of data can be presented to different people at different times when it's required. And so that whole digital transformation is basically data-driven. And of course, with the advance of the artificial intelligence and of being able to kind of go churn through all that data and start giving back related information that makes sense to the end user of the CRM, I think that's key. And that will then basically allow companies to look beyond their traditional ways of doing business and finding out, well, for example, most of our customers, they come through us via a particular channel. Maybe we need to have an app.
Right.
Maybe we need to do something different. And I think that you need that core center. And for me, always has been, is a CRM system. Like, I've never seen it purely as a sales tool. And maybe I am just talking.
Well, there are certainly, so CRM has gone beyond just contact management and the CRM tool, right? Because there's so many analytics about your website. For example, we track people who visit our website. What device were they on? Yeah. What browser were they using? It was shocking to see how many, what percentage of click-throughs and whatnot came from mobile devices, even for business. And so that says, wow, you better make sure you've got a good mobile responsive website, right? And then many smaller businesses haven't thought through that yet. So it's not as related to contacts, but it's certainly part of a CRM strategy, isn't it? Because of the channel.
And that's what you need to do, So, I mean, because people, they arrive on your website or through the channels at all hours nowadays. Yeah. It's so not a 9-to-5 job anymore. One
of the other transformations that happened literally in the last year, though we knew it was coming, was PR. So any high-level thoughts on now that we were sort of past a year, a little bit over a year of GDPR being enacted, which was, I think, May 1st or 21st in 2018. But what's been going on with GDPR in your client base? Any lessons learned?
I'll tell you that no lessons learned at the moment because people are primarily ignoring it still. All they want to know is a GDPR capable? Can we do GDPR? Yes, we can, or no, we can't. And that's it at the moment. I think that there is this 2-year changeover period, but I think with GDPR, because of the legalities that it's written in, that a lot of these things, once it becomes real, will get actually sorted in the European courts.
I think that's what everybody's waiting for, is to see some of those first legal actions. Certainly they're going to go after bigger emailers, but what you made an interesting point, GDPR capable, and one of the questions we get a lot at Goldmine is Goldmine GDPR compliant? Well, it's not the software that has to be compliant. It's the user or the company has to be compliant. They have to have a process, and CRM software can help support that. But at the end of the day, you need to be aware that if a customer asks, you have to have a certain protocol for handling.
Let's leave it there and tell everybody how they can get in touch with you if they want to learn more about what you're doing over there in Ireland and elsewhere.
Well, you can always visit www.monread.com, MONREAD, or you can find me at any time on LinkedIn under Justin J. Smal with 1 L. I'm always open to any conversation or any questions that people have. Happy to assist and discuss anything that they would like to discuss.
Okay, well, good. Well, I'm sure I speak for Paul and for everybody else that we appreciate you tuning in today. I know we had some gremlins and some fairies and some leprechauns blocking our ability to reach in for a couple of minutes there, but I'm glad we got you on and glad we shared all this stuff because it's interesting insight from across the pond here.
All right, well, wonderful. Thanks for having me. Much appreciated.
You've been listening to another episode of CRM Radio Today, brought to you on behalf of the good folks at Goldmine and the Funnel Radio Network for at-work listeners like you.